Call to order. It is 4:32. As we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Review and approval of the minutes are all recorded. So we'll hand it over to you, Susan.
All right. I am going to share the screen. And I should be.
You're good.
Okay. So we start with our policies that are up for elimination. There's like 3 pages of them. These are all mostly under the instruction section. I'm not going to open all of them, but we can just go down through them. You can see that the first one obviously is the mission statement, as we have been taking them out of every section. The priority objectives and the regulations for priority objectives, we're eliminating regulations, so we're taking those out as we go along. The extended year is law, so we don't need a policy for that, and a regulation for that. The school day is contractual and governed by RIDE. The organization of instruction is not needed as a policy. That's sort of like how many minutes you're going to teach a subject, and that's going to change. It's changed over time, and so it really does not need to be a policy. Pilot project evaluation, all that's no longer needed. Curriculum adoption, that is actually, it goes through the school committee, through purchasing, but there's another policy that we've updated that includes the curriculum being recommended by the superintendent to the school committee. So it's covered, but it's just under a different policy. This, citizenship belongs in vision of the graduate, health and physical education and teaching about drugs and sex and family life and alcohol. It's all included in health and wellness policy. The special programs and accommodations, this is a law, we have to follow, it's not needed as a policy. Same thing, program with students with disabilities, program for gifted students, we don't have that as an exceptionality anymore. Disadvantaged students is just refers to the general laws. Academic supports is a RIDE requirement. I don't know if you want me to go through every one of these. If there's one in particular you want to question, but a lot of these, were just no longer needed because they're either just outdated or they're covered in another section. And things were written at a time, maybe when they came out, like we had, why are we targeting physical education and not reading? It may have been that at one time, like that sex education became an issue. And so there was a policy for it. Now it's all contained under that health and wellness. Same thing with MLL students, students with disabilities, gifted students. They were all, sort of highlighted at the time that they became recognized, but they don't need their own policy anymore. And so that's why we were eliminating that. Same thing, the interscholastic, that's governed by the Interscholastic League. We really don't need that. We no longer offer the adult education program. That's the GED program that we used to offer in the evenings. We don't do that anymore. Class size is contractual. Again, a guidance program, why guidance and not psychologists, it's, again, those special groups. So that's it, but it's really, most of it is just that it's either a law that we have to follow, or it's the special interest groups that we really don't need to highlight as its own policy, because all children are covered, under different policies as a total. When we talk about instruction, when we talk about grading, when we talk about, anything else, it's for all students, and not just for gifted, and not just for, students with disabilities, et cetera. So, and of course, these have all been reviewed by legal, and no problem with eliminating them. So if we're okay with that, then let's move on to student surveys. So this was on last month, and you asked, Michelle specifically asked to, at the end of the policy, that we talk about, we have the line that principals will, or designees shall be responsible for informing classroom teachers of the names of students who have opted out of each survey, and teachers shall be responsible for ensuring that students who have opted out do not participate in the survey. And then you question, well, what happens if they don't? How are we guaranteed? So we added this language under both. Failure to follow this policy will result in disciplinary action.
Yeah, and I have a problem with that, obviously. I mean, what do you mean by
suggest?
disciplinary action?
What do you suggest
Well,
as different
I'm
language?
taking disciplinary action out of there.
So make a suggestion.
We'll just say, teachers shall be responsible for ensuring that students who are opted out don't take it.
Yeah, but that's what we had, and.
No, I don't think, we didn't
Yes,
have,
we did. That was,
well, we needed to specify that
what
someone's
happens
gonna
if
be a contact person for that information. So we've got the principal or the designee down there.
Right, and
And
then
so that person is responsible for giving the classroom teachers
Right.
the names,
of
and
course,
then the teacher's responsible for making sure they don't take it.
correct, that's what it was. Michelle questioned and said, what happens, how are we guaranteed, or what happens if one or the other doesn't follow through? So as a principal, I don't give you the name, and it's on me.
Right.
I'm the principal, I give you the name, and you still make one of these children who's opted out still take the survey and say, oh, but we really, here, take it anyway.
I have a
And
question for you though, and I think this is to Darlene's point, right? If it states that principals are responsible for their bid and teachers are responsible for their bid, and they don't do that, doesn't it fall into the same category as if I violate any other policy of the district? There's disciplinary action applied, because if I violate the anti-harassment policy, there's disciplinary action that may apply as well, obviously. So do we need to say disciplinary action applies, or is it understood that when you violate a policy of the district, disciplinary action should apply?
So the backstory, parents came to me that their kid's like, oh, hey, I'm not supposed to take the survey. One, the teacher said, well, just don't answer what you don't want to do. She opted out, Panorama, so she still ended up taking it. Another mother said that the teacher, I don't know how it all went. She just said that the principal came right out and said, well, this is right, you have to take it. So it was two different scenarios, two different families, they wanted to share their experience, so that's why I was just like, well, can we find a way where that principal, I don't know how, if it's credit for the school or whatever, doesn't push the kids that are like, hey, I'm not supposed to do this.
Well, I think since we haven't had this policy and haven't made a big thing about it, I can see where a principal might say, because it's RIDE, and we've had this discussion before, RIDE holds districts harmed if they don't get it. So I'm sure that's why the principal said, well, just do it because it's RIDE.
Right.
Once this policy goes out though, and everybody knows that they need to follow it, whether it's right or not, you're not gonna have that problem. And as far as the teacher piece, maybe that teacher wasn't given the names of the kids, and then the teacher's being told by the principal, you need to give this survey. The kid is saying, I don't take the survey, the teacher has nothing on record to say the kid doesn't take the survey. So I'm sure those two isolated incidents that you mentioned were indeed isolated incidents, and once this policy gets passed and promulgated, we won't have that issue. So as Jeff said, I don't think you need to specifically point out here about any kind of disciplinary action. Because then what are we gonna break it down to? The progressive discipline? What exactly do you mean by disciplinary action? That's up to administration to determine, based on the individual involved.
And it's kind of what I said the night, to not point fingers and say like, oh, teacher, you're bad, you did this. But is there a safety net where parents will then feel comfortable saying, I feel real assured that I'm gonna be protected without
Well, this
making
policy,
anyone feel uncomfortable?
this
I don't know how to
policy
say it.
will be that comfort piece then. Because now the district has enacted this policy, and it clearly says the principal is the point person in the building for all of these forms that are coming in. So it's up, but it might be up to central administration to provide the principal with the list, and then the principal goes to the individual teacher, hey, you have this kid on the list who's not taking it, so make sure the kid doesn't take it.
And I think parents should feel comfortable too, and not just parents, colleagues of each other should feel comfortable too, that with any policy, if you violate any policy, you're gonna be held accountable, you should be held accountable, right? No matter whether it's a survey policy or the, as I said, anti-harassment policy, or whether
So what
it's the
about
technology
those
use policy, you have to follow the policies. If not, you should be held accountable.
But how about those words? Whoever still administers a survey when the child is opted out will be held accountable.
I don't think you need it. It's given you who's responsible at what point. It's, as Jeff said, implied, if you don't follow a policy, something happens. I'm not going to agree to put something specific like this in this one policy. Because then what are we gonna do? Go back and go over all the other policies we have? Because we have policies about
I think the first statement's.
allowing, visitors into buildings or dismissing kids or whatever.
So you're saying, just by saying shall be responsible, it's
Yeah.
supposed to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, shall be responsible gives you the meat for progressive discipline in the future should somebody not follow the policy. If you didn't have the shall be responsible, then it becomes I didn't know it was my job. I didn't know it was, like, then there's that no safeguard thing. But I think if you at least say principals have a job, teachers have a job.
It starts with central administration, whoever is in charge of receiving all of those opt-outs. And then that person's responsible for letting each building principal know, here's the list of opt-outs. And then the building principal is responsible for letting the classroom teacher know. Because maybe prior to that, these opt-outs were going somewhere in the ether, and maybe somebody wasn't properly disseminating that information.
So then, does it say that on here, that list of like how we're gonna support the opt-outs?
Yeah, it's saying the principal's responsible and the teacher's
Right.
responsible.
But I mean, so if central is going to say, hey, we're gonna conduct a list and pass them out to the principals, then should we put that in our policy?
So it would go right to the
Yeah,
principals, it
principals
wouldn't
do
go
it at the-
to central administration.
But I mean, like,
You wouldn't want it to go one more step because they get lost in
then,
the
but
shuffle.
this one say, okay, well, I don't mean to make extra steps. I'm just trying to go with what you're saying. So then, can we say, we will make due diligence to make a list that will go out to parents and teachers and they will be responsible? I don't know, something that,
But isn't that changing, wouldn't that lead to changing of language for other policies that are similar to that too, if we did that? So you'll potentially, you would have to go
Well,
back
isn't
into
that-
the rest?
I just thought that's what we're doing, so I'm just saying, can we just put it in the policy? Why is that wrong?
What was that?
If we're doing it and that's how
It
we're
says
safeguarding,
that, well,
why not just put it in there?
it says that principals shall be responsible for informing classroom teachers of the names of students. You want it to be changed to, for providing the teachers with a list of names?
I don't think you wanna get too specific. I think principals Because sometimes when you get too specific, you kind of eradicate the intent of what you're trying to do. Hoping, and it's a principal's job to give a list. It could be an email, it could be a paper. They need to give a list. They can send carrot picture, but it should be a list for the teacher, right? So they are responsible to collect those opt-outs and get that list. If they fail to do that, they're gonna be held accountable. And if I'm a principal, I'm gonna send that list via email to the teacher, because
There'll be a record.
there'll be a record, and I send it to the teacher.
Yeah.
And so when the teacher says, I never got a list,
I sent the
then
email.
I say, Darlene, I sent an email, and Darlene's like, well, you did actually. And that's what she's
It
super
got, it got lost in all my other.
correct.
You know, honestly, I think this covers it. And if there's ever, again, another instance where it fails, then it's up to the parent to notify the principal, or depending who dropped the ball, you know, notifying the appropriate person that it happened, so that follow-through can happen, because the policy was violated.
But before this policy, the parents that raised the concern to you, there was nothing documented. Now, let's
Or they
pretend.
just said, I opted out of Panorama, but it's still not.
Yeah, but it wasn't a policy that
Now
said
we're
who does
putting
what with
it in
that.
there saying,
Now there is. So if this
There's
parent
safeguards
comes to
in
you
here
6
now.
months from now and says, I opted out on Panorama, and the teacher still gave my kid a survey, now we have that language in there.
So this just says held accountable without saying held accountable. It's not even like, I don't think, it's not, I'm not trying to say anyone should get in trouble. It's not, I mean,
No, but they should,
But
because if you violate a policy.
It says you're
you should get in trouble.
responsible. If you don't live up to that responsibility, something is gonna happen. If we
Sure.
put that in here, we're gonna go through now every other policy that we've done and put it in there. Why is this one so special that we have to put that special line in there? Because we have lots of other policies and rules and regulations that people have to follow every day. And when they don't, they get a call. They get a meeting.
Yeah.
They are held accountable.
If it's a policy, you don't have the opportunity to not follow it.
Right.
Once this is passed, if anything, taking time to pass this kind of elongates the amount of problems we could have. This should get passed right away, so that way it's enacted right away, and you can start holding people accountable. You know, but when it's policy status, it's a big deal. Because it now joins all those other big deal policies in the district that if you violate, you should have consequences. I keep saying that, but it applies to the social media usage policy.
Correct.
If you violate that, it doesn't say, if you violate it, you're gonna get a warning, and if you violate that policy, bam, you're called in, you know, and there's progressive discipline. And we need to get this enacted so this can join that list. My opinion.
all right? Okay. All right, homeworks. I'm gonna first bring up the first homework. This homework is the one that we've been looking at this since September, to be honest with you. This is the one where we have the average number of minutes, and at high school, it should be 120, and the argument is teachers don't talk to each other to know that it's gonna be 120. And after the last school committee meeting, I was a little frustrated. Who was it who told me they love, oh, Ellen says she loves watching me at school committee meetings. She can read my face very clearly. And so I ended up saying, you know, enough's enough with this. Let me see what else is out there. You know, what do other districts, you know, do? Because this was our regulation. This language I took from our regulation, which we had been living by for a number of years. So I came up with option 2, and I sent option 2 out to teachers, elementary and secondary teachers, principals, central office, you know, everybody, to take a look at it and give me feedback, which did they prefer. And unanimously, option 2 was it. It's keeping the first paragraph of our current policy, and then all the rest of this is new. Homework is assigned at the discretion of the teacher. Homework is defined and what the purpose of homework is. And the time allotments are up to 15 minutes, 2 to 3 days a week at the elementary level, up to 30 minutes. Middle school, inclusive of reading, is up to 60 minutes, 4 to 5 days, based on course selection. 6th, 7th, and 8th grades may be assigned up to 80 minutes, 4 to 5 days. High school, homework assignments will vary depending upon the level and type of course. Homework expectations for each course at the high school will be given to all students during the first week that each course begins. Expectations may be provided in the course syllabus. That takes care of it. That's saying that each course is going to have its own expectations, and you're going to know about it up front. You know, how much homework you're going to have. And then these are the students' responsibilities, and the parents' responsibilities, and teachers' responsibilities. And everyone was, you know, again, very much, and they provided a little bit of feedback with language, which I tweaked, particularly with the assuring resources and materials. At first, I think the language was are provided, and then it's changed to are obtainable, because we don't give every resource and material to complete homework. Sometimes it's up to the kids to get it themselves. So again, with the input from teachers and administrators, everyone was hands down. They prefer this option too. And if this committee's okay with it, we'll put it up as a first read because it's all brand new. I would put it up as a first read as our new homework policy. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Any questions or suggestions? Yes, I have to go with option 2. And the first one, go quickly. The next one is the staff gifts and solicitations. This was on the, I just did something. So this one, all I had to do was put in, that the superintendent, I believe it was, that the superintendent is notified if a GoFundMe or any type of fundraising, is going on at a school. And so I just added that in, but I think that was all that we needed to do to make this one ready to go back. So I added that in. Is everyone okay with that one? Hearing no objections, we'll go on to tutoring for pay. This was one we tabled, because it didn't reflect what actually was happening in the district. So this is the revised policy. Teachers in the Warwick Public Schools shall receive preference for home tutoring over those from outside the system to provide consistency for the student to the extent they're qualified for the position. When more than one person in the Warwick Public Schools has applied for the same positions and qualifications are considered equal, the current classroom teacher shall receive preference to provide services. Other teachers in the school department will be offered the opportunity should the classroom teacher decline. And finally, to the certified teachers outside of the student's schools. Seniority in the school system shall govern, Further, where all qualifications are equal, full-time teachers shall be selected over part-time teachers. Certified staff may be paid by the Warwick School Department for tutoring students enrolled in a class under their direction in extended day programs. I believe some of that language comes out of the contract. So if they're okay with that?
Yeah.
They put that up for a first read. All right, new business. These are the ones that I worked on for this month. Drug-free workplace. There was not much change to this one. It was really updating, the laws, adding, I believe it was alcohol-free learning environment. That was really it. There really was very little needed to be added to update it. I mean, honestly, I just sent it to legal to say, what do we need to update this? And that was all that was needed to update it. That hadn't been touched since 91. But this was all that was needed to update it. So we're okay with that? We can move on. This next policy was one that Brandon asked to, for us to put together, that he had been at meetings where we were highly encouraged to have a family leave policy, because we didn't have one. And so this is one that is basically a boilerplate policy that has gone through HR, Brandon, and legal. In fact, I think it's North Kingstown just updated theirs, and they shared that with us. So a lot of this just came out of their language, using their language as well. This is totally brand new, so it's not, I mean, the whole thing would be underlined, which would be difficult to read when you're talking 12 pages. It would be very annoying to read.
I just
12
have
pages of
I
underlined.
just have a question.
Yep.
How come WISE has a period of incapacity of 3 days while WTU has 5 days?
I believe that must be their contract, because Kim went through this, and she gave me the language right out of the contract. And she had actually people in her office look at it as well to make sure.
So we have 5 in ours?
Must be.
I need to look at that. Well, then something to change for the future.
While Darlene's looking that up, is there anything else in this policy that anyone had a question about? I didn't understand, I mean, I put it together, but don't ask me what it says, other than there's a lot of rules for being out.
I think the main thing Brandon was looking for, which you have, is a leave year. You wanted the leave year to match for everybody, and you have September 1 through August 31st. That was the gray area he was talking about, when he would come back from the meeting.
So it's okay for us to go on when you're looking it up?
Yeah, I mean, if you're, as long as you're making a policy, because actually, I don't think we have FMLA written in the contract.
you know, if you can't find it and have a question, why don't you contact him and if
Yes.
there's
Yeah.
a change before Tuesday, you can easily make
All
it.
right. Yeah, because I don't see 5 days in here.
Might be looking in the wrong place too.
No, it's all in it, all of our leave stuff is in the same place.
Yeah. All right, this next policy, I had given Patty, two policies to look at when we were going through the eliminating the I's. She pulled these two out and she pulled out two that she wanted to work on. And so this first one was videos in the classroom, which now is called electronic media in the classroom. So it basically is updating the language, because we don't use videotapes per se. And then I added in language about the copyright laws or the licensing laws, particularly with like Disney, because she wrote me a note against it and said there are licensing laws, and that PTOs follow. And so sure enough, I looked it up and found this language, a public performance site license. That was just, you know, legalese taken right off the internet.
So does that mean it's literally illegal to play Disney inside a classroom?
Only if you have the license.
You have to purchase it.
You have to purchase
Purchase
it.
a
It's not
license.
expensive. It was like 100 and something a year. It was not expensive to purchase the license, but you have to have the license. And,
You can't just use somebody's Disney account or something.
Right. and you can't take, you know, borrow it from the library and, you know, play it. I didn't put it in here because we don't do it, but you can't play movies outside either.
Really?
They said.
Like a
under that
PTO
license.
event, you can't do that either. You can't play
So-
movies at like a PTO event after school.
I think it might be depending upon which licensing agreement you purchase, it probably has that kind of language in it.
Wow.
So I just left it as, that the PTA can exhibit, I should put PTA.
Well, remember in the old days, all the VHS tapes always had the FBI warning on there.
That's crazy that you can't just play a movie anymore. That's, wow.
And the rest of this was strictly, just changing, video to media or electronic media. And then striking out the definitions of PG-13 and all that stuff.
Oh,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Just to play devil's advocate, so when you're saying no rated R videos shall be shown in schools, so I'm just thinking the district that I'm in. So there might be a rated R movie that's appropriate for a class. Wouldn't you want to have something similar where it would be to the sentence before where you would require written permission? So here's what I mean. An example, a street law class. The movie The Hurricane is relevant, perhaps to the topic to that. That's a rated R film. So I know like in my district, for example, what we'll do is you have to send home permission slip and the parent has to sign it. Just thinking like forward that might be applicable, especially for juniors and seniors.
that's a good point.
Should I say unless,
That's a good
well,
point because in
without
English, yeah.
maybe
Well, even some of the
no R,
Shakespeare stuff.
NC-17 or TVMA, videos shall be shown in schools, in school without parent permission, without written parent permission.
I mean, you can take NC-17
Yeah,
shouldn't be
but just
shown.
like rated R, especially when you think about some of the older ratings, they were far stricter than what they are today too.
That's true too,
Like if you look at some of those 90s films.
yeah.
What's TVMA? That's mature.
Mature audiences.
So that would,
That's more like, well, that's a lesson rate.
It's like Sons of Anarchy or
Yeah.
something.
I think NC 17 is the only thing that wouldn't make
Yeah.
sense to have in a school.
What's your
Probably are.
And then those NC 17 will be shown at all.
Please no. That's a lot of work.
They wanted a cat.
Darlene included. Please don't do that.
No, please don't.
Please don't do that.
you want that sentence, NC 17?
Building is not being shown at all. We can spell that one out. And don't
You shouldn't have to, but.
You shouldn't have to, but we're gonna put it in. The funny thing is, some of the real old stuff that might be pretty, have no ratings at all.
It's even worse.
That's a
than
good point.
readers.
How do you handle that?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, good.
There's all the old Hayes Commission stuff too. Banned in Boston. That used to be like Caligula, when Caligula came up, banned in Boston.
All right, here's the other one that Patty worked on, and this is field trips and excursions. So this one now talks about, first informing, who has to be informed by what type of trip. So school-sponsored field trips are off-site excursions directly related to and supportive of the curriculum, which have received the appropriate approval required by this policy. In-state field trips shall be approved by the building principal. Walking field trips shall be approved by the elementary/secondary director. Local out-of-state trips shall be approved by the elementary, secondary director, and the superintendent shall be notified. So that's your, if you're going to Massachusetts, just over the line to Connecticut, Lynn gets notified, has to be approved by Bill and/or Patty, etc. If you're going on a walking field trip, Bill and Patty need to know that they're out on the street. But then when you're gonna be on a multi-day out-of-state field trip, they have to be approved in advance by the superintendent and the school committee.
And on that second paragraph, the last sentence, you're just missing a punctuation at the end. Shall be notified.
Oh, yeah. And a comma after, elementary director / secondary director, so it's a compound sentence. Yeah.
All right,
So that,
spells that one out. My favorite policy, homeschooling.
that's
We
all
met
you
with our-
got.
We met with our homeschool friends, and so they have approved the change to this policy. This came as a result of the attendance committee meeting, and Adam actually sharing that there are some families that have learned that they can take their children out of school, get approved for homeschool, stay out for a couple weeks, come back in, stay in school for a couple weeks,
Go back
go
out.
back out, and they're doing this, and at the middle school level in particular, and they're avoiding truancy, it's their way of getting around truancy, and it's it's causing havoc in the school, and of course, the student is losing so much instruction, it's just criminal, that they're losing so much instruction. So we couldn't, originally, we were gonna put in that they had to stay out a year, but it was pointed out, and rightly so, that you can't deny a child the right to come into a public school. So we had to nix that idea, and instead, under number 12, we now say that if you are coming back before the end of an approved year, that you will have to have a conference with the homeschool coordinator and the principal. So we're just gonna make, you have to jump through a hoop. We're gonna make you jump through a hoop if you're gonna do this. You have to jump through a hoop.
Well, it's a good opportunity too, to inform the student and the parent of the work that's been missed or.
Oh, yeah, absolutely,
So you're
absolutely.
with that.
But it then, says we're onto your
You
game,
know what you're up to now.
and we're not gonna keep doing this. So they're happy with it, they don't have a problem with it, and it should be good to go with this one. And hopefully that will,
So that's a way to still be able to get people involved that need to be involved if they're using the game.
right, because those parents that keep taking their kids in and out, if they take them out and then bring them back in a couple weeks later,
Yeah.
they're gonna have to conference with Paul and the principal.
And you
And
guys
more
can
than likely,
kind
the
of
truant
document.
officer as
And
well.
then the truant officer
That's what I
may
was
be
wondering.
there as well,
Yeah.
to have a conference before the kid comes back in.
They're trying to get off the court docs.
Right.
So that's what they're doing.
Sometimes a parent will come back in mid-year, but they've tried it, they thought it was right, the student, at all levels, elementary, middle, and
Right.
senior high, that they've tried it, the student is now ready to come back to school, and they'll still need a conference, but it's done for the right reasons, and the student comes back and they stay.
Yeah.
But there's this new game that started
That's crazy.
where they're just trying to avoid truancy court, and this is the way they're doing it. And, not sure why they keep coming back in, but maybe the kid wants to be in school, but doesn't come all the time, I don't know. Or maybe mom is going crazy with the kid at home, I don't know. Whatever.
God bless homeschool.
All right, then I got into section K, and this is KB, Public Information Program. Warwick School Committee recognizes the importance of providing information regarding the school district to the community. The school committee and the superintendent will utilize all appropriate means and media to provide basic information about the district, to advise the district of current events, provide newspapers or any other medium or group with best available information. The school committee and district information will be made by the chairperson or the superintendent or designee. Information on meetings and awards. Staff can release to the news that type of event. And then we're adding in to keep students and staff members fully informed, as well as
Oh, number 5 has board in there.
yeah. So this is the purpose, to keep students informed about policies and procedures, to involve students in the community in discussions regarding education programs, student activities, and policy. And when communicating, personnel will respect their diversity and needs by translating key information where practical. All right. ABC. News media relations. We added these two paragraphs about encouraging a policy of sound relations with the press. Again, it reiterates that the school committee chair and the superintendent are the official spokespeople for the district. And that if the media show up unannounced, that the superintendent should be notified. That was in the original. It hasn't been touched since 1999.
Wouldn't you want to change the last paragraph when you're being specific about different types of media to include something like more broad, like social media? So I don't know, let's just say like someone decides like, hey, I want to do a podcast on something and shows up.
So take out all of this and just say
Or just say media in
chat
general.
media.
Yeah. Any type, form. That's a good point though, maybe because today we have that going on.
Just up the media.
Yeah.
AG. Community use of facilities. Warwick School Committee believes that the school facility should be made available, provided that doesn't infringe on the original necessary purpose of the property or interfere with the educational program. Community groups will be permitted and encouraged to use school facilities for worthwhile purposes when such use will not interfere with the regular school-related program. And the school committee will have the authority to approve or reject. That's part of this original policy. And then all non-facility use must be scheduled through, and I believe it's Department of Buildings and Grounds.
I think it's the business office.
Yeah.
Okay, through the business office. And then the group will promise that they'll guarantee orderly behavior, underwrite any damages, pay for the use of equipment. Individual schools have the first priority over use of their own facilities. Use of facilities shall be available to groups that represent the community, or to any group when the benefits derived benefit the welfare of the community. The no out-of-school group will begin activities until the school is dismissed in the afternoon. Any violation of district policy, terms and conditions for building facilities use or variance from the type of use proposed on the application shall constitute grounds for revocation of the approval and for refusal of permission to use district facilities in any future time. Users will confine themselves to the areas and equipment approved in the application. Goes on, kitchen equipment won't be used. It just spells out in a lot more detail how the facilities will be used. And then the rental fees stay as it is, and the yards and athletic fields and parking lots. And then legal added this indemnification paragraph.
So they have to show, organizations have to show proof of insurance. Should that be on the first page?
Let's hear
What
it.
they have, what the groups have to do, guarantee orderly behavior.
You want me to add it in here? I mean, move this up? It's
Oh,
at the
sorry.
end.
Sorry.
That was part of the original policy. I
Oh,
can,
okay.
I can take it out and,
Yeah, I think it should be,
okay,
yeah.
I'll move that up.
If you're on the first page too, under approval, second paragraph, second sentence, there's like another little, like another little underscore. No
Under no, right?
others, and then there's like a line, no organization. Nope, go back up.
Okay,
Right there.
Yeah.
So,
No? There we go. All right, anything else? Last of these to go on the agenda for 3 is public conduct on school property. Just added this language, no persons on district property will injure or threaten each other, damage the property, incite, initiate or circulate a report known to be false, violate parking regulations, drive in an unsafe manner, use a drone. See, you know, I research and all this new language comes up. You say, didn't think about a drone,
unmanned aircraft system.
otherwise known as a drone.
Yes.
And then the code is changed. This hasn't been touched since 1980.
Number 6 has board versus school committee. Just right there where your cursor is. Yep.
Good with this one? All right, we got our share, these are the, reviewed policies that, public's right to know, access to public records, doesn't, you know, it's fine. Use of department listserv, that was just written, 2 years ago. It still doesn't need to be updated. These were all the Ks. Public participation at school committee meetings, really did not, I mean, it still holds true, doesn't really need it, did not, sorry. Really did not need to be updated. Just, you know, saying chair is responsible for conducting meetings.
Does it mention anything about public comments? Public participation?
Well, it says that will from time to time as matters to be brought to the attention of the committee. I can take this out and update it with, a sentence,
Public will have the opportunity to speak to the school committee, the superintendent, or to any administrator through public comment.
okay. I'll remove that and we'll put it on next month's agenda.
Okay.
All right. And advertising, this one was fairly recent as well, if I'm not mistaken. 2022. This one was talking about, the signage and all that kind of stuff. Advertising, it was written particularly around the high school signboards, in order to get them for free.
Yeah.
They would have to advertise these different companies. So this was, updated for that reason.
Remember when the school committee was talking about allowing advertising on buses?
Mhm.
That was a while ago. That was a thing for a bit. Let's allow ads on the buses.
The buses we owned, or for a student,
Yeah, we owned our own buses,
let's go back there.
This one,
but not the big buses, the special ed buses.
we technically should actually be eliminating, but when we went through them initially, we said to keep this one, the goals, but in all the other sections, we've been eliminating the goals, because it really goes, goes into what should be in a district plan. But if you want to keep it, it really doesn't need any updating, and I didn't do anything to it. But if you want to, we can put it up for elimination instead. Because all the other sections, we've eliminated that first policy, because the goals are all things that should be in our district strategic plan and not really a policy. But if you want to keep it, we just keep it as is.
Keep it as is.
Fine. All right. Before we get to discussion, I've been sharing that I've been working really hard. I already have May's and June's agendas set. And I'll be leaving Paul with July, August, September as well. So, I'm, trying to get through. I'm still working on I right now. There are a few of them I'm gonna just leave for, Patty and Lisa, like the grading, the honor rolls, that kind of stuff for them to do. But I and J are very big sections. And so that's what I'm gonna be focusing on for the next couple months. I also, for next month, I found I was going through, I went to the website and I made sure every link worked and that every policy label matched the policy, because I found a few errors. And in doing so, I found that in section B, there were 4 policies on writing policy. So I said, no, we're not doing that. So next month, I've consolidated the 4 policies down to 1. which we'll take a look at.
I wonder how that ended up with four
Well,
separate.
one was for writing, one was for voting, one was for
Oh, okay.
disseminating,
All right,
one was for, you know, it was crazy. Each one was a different aspect of writing.
they might have been
Policy.
holdovers too from when we had the superintendent regulations versus school district policy. Remember, we,
Yeah, yeah.
because that's part of this is melding them.
But it was, and some of them said the same exact thing.
That's funny.
So I said, no, let's work on this one. So I did work on that.
That's pretty funny.
So we will have, you know, packed agendas for the next couple of meetings. And then I'll be handing it over to Paul and he'll be carrying on. But he will have plenty to work with.
Is it bittersweet?
Yeah, but you know, this was the goal to get this manual done this year. So
Well, we're moving right along.
we are moving right along. There's only so much you can do in a month.
Right, absolutely.
You know, that can go through the school committee, that this committee can actually review, you know, well, and not, you know, just be rubber stamping. And to, you know, you always find some good things. You look at things through your own lenses and we always make good, revisions, I think, at this table. So I always look forward to bringing this forward. But now K, at the end of this, K will be completely done. A is done. D and G are done. There's just a couple of them in E, buildings and grounds that I have to get Kevin to look at. Other than that, those are done. So, yeah, we're just getting through it. All right, I turn it back over to you.
Discussion?
We kind of discussed as we went, so.
There's no public comment, there's no public here, right?
No comment.
And then do you have any announcements? Okay, then we go on at 5:35.
All right. Stop recording.